The insurance investigator in me knew a fraud when I saw one. What I didn't know was that my own wife had been running the biggest con of all, right under my nose for 10 months. I should have realized something was wrong when Sienna started wearing perfume to bed. Not the vanilla stuff she'd worn for 8 years, but something French and expensive that made my throat close up. She'd spray it on after her shower, standing with new clothes in front of our bedroom mirror like she was getting ready for someone special. That someone wasn't me. The night I found out, she was supposed to be at book club. I was working late on a case, a suspicious house fire in Millbrook where the homeowner had conveniently been out of town. Insurance fraud has patterns, and I'd learned to spot them after 12 years investigating claims. People think they're clever, but they always leave breadcrumbs. My phone buzzed with a text from Sienna. "Running late, don't wait up, love you." 20 minutes later, my neighbor called. "Hey, Emmett, saw Sienna leaving the Marriott downtown with some guy. Figured you should know." I sat in my Honda Civic in the hotel parking lot for 3 hours. At 11:47 p.m., she walked out with Dr. Joel Tanning, the grief counselor who'd been helping us process my father's passing 6 months earlier. They kissed in the elevator bank like teenagers, his hands tangled in her auburn hair. I drove home and waited for her in the dark kitchen. She came in at 12:23 a.m., humming softly and reeking of Zex and that expensive perfume. When she saw me sitting at the table with a cup of cold coffee, she jumped. "God, Emmett, you scared me. How was book club?" "Oh, same old drama. Margaret's still obsessing over that romance novel." She kissed my forehead, and I could smell him on her skin. "I'm exhausted. Going to bed." I watched her disappear upstairs. Then I opened my laptop and started a new file labeled Case 187, Sienna Kale. If she wanted to play investigator versus suspect, I'd give her a masterclass. The next morning, I called in sick to work. Sienna had already left for her event planning job, kissing me goodbye with those lying lips. I spent the day installing surveillance equipment throughout the house. Nothing illegal, just security cameras in common areas and a voice recorder in her car. Insurance fraud taught me that evidence is everything. Without documentation, it's just he said, she said. I wasn't about to lose everything I'd built on hearsay. My father had left me the house we grew up in on Elm Street, plus a modest savings account. It wasn't millions, but it was enough to live comfortably. Sienna had been pushing to sell the house since the funeral, claiming it was too full of sad memories. Now I understood why she was so eager to liquidate assets. I set up motion-activated cameras in the living room, kitchen, and hallway. The bedroom was off limits, even I had standards. But I needed to know what she was planning. The first real evidence came 3 days later. Sienna was on the phone in the kitchen, thinking I was at work. I'd parked 2 blocks away and snuck in through the basement. "I can't keep doing this, Joel. He's getting suspicious." "Relax. We talked about this." "He's still in the grief phase, depressed, withdrawn. Classic presentation." "What if he finds out?" "Then we stick to the plan. I've been documenting his emotional instability since our sessions began. If needed, I can recommend a psychiatric evaluation." "And then?" "Power of attorney. If he's declared mentally unfit, you can make financial decisions on his behalf. The house sells, the money transfers, and we start fresh." My blood turned to ice water. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning to steal my inheritance by having me declared insane. That night at dinner, Sienna was unusually affectionate. She'd made my favorite meal, pot roast with carrots, and kept touching my hand across the table. "I've been thinking about what Dr. Tanning said in our sessions," she began. "About processing grief in healthy ways." "What about it?" "Maybe we should consider couples therapy. I worry about you sometimes, Emmy. You've been so distant since your dad died." Emmy. She only called me that when she wanted something. "I'm fine," I said, "just working through things." "That's exactly what I mean. You don't talk to me anymore. You spend all your time on those insurance cases, obsessing over details that don't matter. Those details pay for this house." "About that?" She set down her fork. "I really think we should sell, start somewhere new." Fresh memories. "My father built this house with his own hands. I'm not selling." Her smile faltered for just a second. "Of course not. I understand. It's just sometimes I feel like you love this house more than you love me." She was good. If I hadn't overheard her phone call, I might have fallen for the manipulation. Instead, I reached across the table and took her hand. "I love you more than anything," I lied. Maybe you're right about the therapy. Her face lit up. Really? Joel has an opening next Thursday. Perfect. That night, she made love to me with an enthusiasm she hadn't shown in months. I held her afterward, stroking her hair, planning my next move. Insurance fraud cases taught me that the best defense is a perfect offense. If they wanted to play the crazy card, I'd give them exactly what they expected, while building an ironclad case against them. I started leaving the house at odd hours, telling Sienna I was going for drives to clear my head. Really, I was following them, documenting their meetings, their hotel visits, their intimate dinners at restaurants across town. I bought a digital camera with a telephoto lens and spent my evenings in parking lots collecting evidence. The pictures were devastating. Joel's hand on Sienna's thigh at Romano's, their kiss in his office after hours, Sienna leaving his apartment at dawn wearing the same dress from the night before. But I needed more than infidelity. I needed proof of the financial conspiracy. That came 2 weeks later when I hacked Sienna's email account. She'd used the same password for 8 years, our wedding anniversary. Not very creative for someone planning to destroy me. The email thread with Joel was a goldmine. From siennakale@gmail.com to jtanning.phd@university.edu with subject ease evaluation Joel, he agreed to therapy. Can you really get him committed? From jtanning.phd@university.edu to siennakale@gmail.com. Subject, ease evaluation not committed, but declared incompetent. I'll need 3-4 sessions to establish a pattern of delusional thinking. Once I have sufficient documentation, we can petition for guardianship. You'd have full control over his assets. From siennakale@gmail.com to jtanning.phd@university.edu. Subject, ease evaluation. How long before we can sell the house? From jtanning.phd@university.edu to siennakale@gmail.com. Subject, ease evaluation, 6 months minimum. These things take time. But once it's done, he'll never be able to contest it. We'll be free. I printed every email and stored them in a safety deposit box at First National Bank. Then, I started playing my role. At our first therapy session, I sat in Joel's office and performed the part of a grieving, unstable widower's son. I talked about seeing my father in dreams, about feeling disconnected from reality, about struggles with memory and concentration. Joel ate it up, scribbling notes with barely concealed excitement. Emmett, these episodes you're describing sound quite serious. Have you considered that you might benefit from medication? I don't know. I've never been good with pills. Sometimes our brains need chemical assistance to process trauma. I'm going to recommend a psychiatric evaluation. Sienna squeezed my hand. Whatever you think is best, Dr. Tanning. Perfect. They were walking right into my trap. Over the next month, I played the role of a man slowly losing his grip on reality. I started forgetting appointments, leaving tasks half-finished, asking Sienna to repeat herself multiple times in conversations. At work, I told my supervisor I was struggling with focus and needed to take some personal time. All the while, I was documenting everything. Hidden cameras captured Joel coaching Sienna on what to say to support the incompetency case. Audio recordings caught him admitting he was falsifying my psychiatric evaluation. The most damning evidence came during their planning session at his apartment. I'd hidden a recording device in Sienna's purse, a tiny digital recorder, smaller than a thumb drive. The evaluation is scheduled for next Tuesday, Joel said. I'll have Dr. Martinez conduct it, but I've already briefed him on the expected findings. How much did that cost us? $5,000. But it's worth it. Once Emmett's declared incompetent, we can fast-track the house sale. I've already found a buyer through my real estate contact. What about Emmett? Where will he go? Assisted living facility, somewhere quiet where he can get the care he needs. They were planning to warehouse me in a nursing home and steal my life. The casual cruelty of it made my hands shake. But I wasn't done yet. If they wanted to destroy me, I'd give them a master class in destruction. 2 weeks before the psychiatric evaluation, I got a call from my brother Hugh. We hadn't spoken since the funeral, and I wasn't surprised he was calling about money. Emmy, I need to talk to you about Dad's will. What about it? I think there was a mistake. He left everything to you, but I was taking care of him the last few years. I should get something. That was rich. Hugh had visited our father maybe 6 times in 5 years, usually when he needed money for his gambling debts. The will was clear, Hugh. Dad left the house and savings to me. That's not fair, and you know it. I'm family too. You're also a convicted felon with a pill problem. That was years ago. I'm clean now. What do you want? 50,000. That's fair. I don't have 50,000. You will when you sell the house. Sienna told me you guys are thinking about it. My blood went cold. How did Hugh know about Sienna's plans? When did you talk to Sienna? Last week. She called me. Said you were having some problems, might need to liquidate assets for medical expenses. She was already working the angles, preparing the family for my mental breakdown. I'll think about it, I told Hugh. You better do more than think about it. Family takes care of family. The threat was clear. Hugh was desperate enough to cause problems, and Sienna was smart enough to use him as leverage. I decided to solve two problems at once. The next day, I called Hugh and told him I'd changed my mind. I invited him over to discuss a payment plan. What he didn't know was that I'd hidden a digital recorder in the living room and prepared a little theater. Hugh arrived at 7 p.m., already drunk and belligerent. So you came to your senses, he said, settling into Dad's old recliner like he owned it. I've been thinking about what you said, about family. Good. Because I wasn't going to take no for an answer. What's that supposed to mean? Hugh leaned forward, his breath reeking of whiskey. It means I know things, Emmy. Things about your marriage that might interest certain people. What are you talking about? Your wife's been real friendly lately. Called me 3 times this week, asking about your behavior, whether you seemed unstable. Whether you'd been talking about hurting yourself? My skin crawled. Sienna was building her case through multiple witnesses, and Hugh was too stupid to realize he was being manipulated. She's concerned about me. We've been having a rough time. Rough enough that she's screwing her therapist? I froze. What? Come on, Emmy. I may be a drunk, but I'm not blind. I saw them together at the Marriott last Tuesday. Thought you should know, in case it affects our little arrangement. He was trying to blackmail me with information I already had, but his admission was perfect for my purposes. You're lying. Am I? Maybe I should call that insurance company you work for? Tell them their star investigator can't even investigate his own wife. That was exactly what I needed him to say. Get out of my house. Not until we settle our business. 50,000, Emmy, or everyone finds out what a pathetic C you are. I stood up slowly. You want to blackmail me in my own home? I want what's owed to me. I walked to the kitchen and returned with a bottle of Dad's good whiskey. Hugh's eyes lit up. Now you're talking sense. I poured 2 glasses, then excused myself to use the bathroom. In the hallway, I retrieved the small baggie of cocaine I'd confiscated from a client's car during an insurance investigation 6 months earlier. I'd kept it as evidence, but it would serve a better purpose now. I slipped the baggie into Hugh's jacket pocket, then returned to the living room. We drank and talked for another hour. Hugh got progressively drunker and more belligerent, eventually passing out in Dad's chair. I waited until he was snoring, then called 911. I'd like to report a break-in. Someone's in my house, and I think they're on pills. When the police arrived, Hugh was conscious but barely coherent. They found the cocaine in his jacket and arrested him for possession and trespassing. With his record, he'd be looking at serious time. Problem solved. The psychiatric evaluation was scheduled for the following Tuesday. I arrived at Dr. Martinez's office prepared to give the performance of my lifetime. But first, I had one more piece of business to handle. The night before the evaluation, I transferred ownership of the house to a trust I'd established through a lawyer friend. The trust was legal, binding, and completely removed from any potential guardianship proceedings. Even if they succeeded in having me declared incompetent, they couldn't touch the house. I also transferred my savings to an offshore account and purchased a life insurance policy naming my unborn children as beneficiaries. It was a long shot, but I had plans. Dr. Martinez was a thin man with nervous hands and shifty eyes. I could tell immediately that Joel had gotten to him. Mr. Kale, I understand you've been experiencing some difficulties since your father's passing. Sometimes I feel like he's still alive. Like he's watching me. How often do you have these feelings? Every day. Sometimes I talk to him, out loud. Martinez scribbled notes eagerly. Do you hear him respond? Not in words, but I know what he'd say. What would he say? I looked directly at Martinez. That some people can't be trusted. that they'll smile to your face while they stab you in the back. Are you referring to anyone specific? My wife, her lover. The people who think they can steal from me? Martinez shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Kale, paranoid ideation is common in grief responses, but it's not paranoia if it's true. I pulled out my phone and played the audio recording of Joel and Sienna planning to have me committed. Martinez went pale. Where did you get this? I'm an insurance investigator, doctor. I investigate fraud. This is what fraud sounds like. I stood up and straightened my jacket. I assume you'll be filing an accurate report about my mental state? He nodded frantically. Good, because I have recordings of Dr. Tanning briefing you on the expected findings. Falsifying a psychiatric evaluation is a felony. I left him sitting in his office, probably wondering how much trouble he was in. But I wasn't done. Not even close. That evening, I called Sienna at work. Hey, honey, I have a surprise for you. Remember that art gallery you mentioned? The one having the opening next week? The Morrison Gallery? What about it? I thought we could go together, like a date. She sounded pleased. Really? That's so sweet. I didn't think you were interested in art. I'm interested in things that interest you. I love you, Emmy. I love you too. Another lie, but necessary. The Morrison Gallery opening was exactly what I expected. Pretentious art, pretentious people, and overpriced wine. But it served my purpose perfectly. I'd researched the guest list and knew that Lila Tanning, Joel's 21-year-old daughter, would be there. She was an art student at the university, specializing in sculpture. According to her social media, she had a complicated relationship with her controlling father and a history of dating older men. Perfect. I found her standing alone in front of a bronze sculpture, looking bored and slightly drunk. It's supposed to represent the futility of human connection, I said, approaching slowly. She turned, and I was struck by how much she looked like her father. Same dark hair, same intelligent eyes. But where Joel was calculating, she seemed genuinely lost. Is that what you see? She asked. I see an artist who spent 6 months on something that took me 6 seconds to understand. She laughed. That's refreshingly honest. Most people pretend to see deeper meaning. I'm not most people, I'm Emmett. Lila. We shook hands, and I felt the first stirring of genuine attraction. She was beautiful, yes, but more than that. She was real in a way Sienna had never been. What do you do, Emmett? I solve puzzles, insurance investigation. Sounds boring. It is. What about you? Art student, also boring. Why art? She considered the question seriously. Because everything else is fake. People lie, relationships fail, promises break. But art, even bad art, is honest about what it is. I understood exactly what she meant. We talked for another hour about art, life, and the performance that most people call daily existence. When the gallery started closing, I walked her to her car. I enjoyed talking with you, I said. Me too. It's rare to meet someone who doesn't pretend to be something they're not. If only she knew. Would you like to have coffee sometime? She smiled. I'd like that. I gave her my personal cell number, not the one Sienna knew about. Over the next 2 weeks, Lila and I met for coffee, lunch, and long walks through the park. I told her I was separated from my wife, which wasn't technically true, but would be soon enough. She told me about her difficult relationship with her father, her struggles with art school, and her dreams of moving to New York. I found myself genuinely caring about her, which complicated things. This was supposed to be purely strategic, a way to get close to Joel and gather intelligence. But Lila was funny, smart, and surprisingly wise for her age. She was also exactly what I needed. Our first kiss happened 3 weeks after we met, on a bench overlooking the river. It was gentle, tentative, and nothing like the calculated passion I shared with Sienna. I should tell you something, Lila said afterward. What? My dad's going to hate you. Why? Because you make me happy. He doesn't like it when I'm happy with someone he can't control. Tell me about him. Her expression darkened. He's a psychologist. Thinks he can analyze everyone, fix everyone. He's been trying to fix me my whole life. Maybe you don't need fixing. That's what I keep telling him. That night, I lay in bed next to Sienna, thinking about Lila's smile and the way she'd touched my face when we kissed. Sienna was sleeping peacefully, probably dreaming about her new life with Joel. I was dreaming too, but my dreams were much darker. The next phase of my plan required perfect timing. Joel and Sienna were getting careless, meeting more frequently and taking bigger risks. They thought they'd already won, that I was a broken man stumbling toward inevitable defeat. They had no idea I was 3 moves ahead. I started leaving evidence of my deteriorating mental state around the house. Incomplete sentences scrawled on notepads, appointment cards for doctors I'd never visited, empty prescription bottles for antidepressants I'd never taken. Sienna found them all, just as I'd intended. "Emmy, I found these in your desk drawer," she said one morning, holding up the prescription bottles. I looked confused. "I don't remember those. The dates are from last month. Doctor Patterson prescribed them for anxiety." "I've never been to Dr. Patterson." She exchanged a worried look with me. "Honey, we talked about this. You had an appointment after the evaluation." "I don't remember." It was a masterful performance. Sienna was so convinced of her own deception that she never questioned whether I might be deceiving her. That evening, she called Joel. "It's getting worse. He's forgetting conversations, losing time. Maybe we should move faster." Patience. "We need everything documented properly. 1 more month." But I was done waiting. The next morning, I called Lila. "I need to see you. It's important." We met at our usual coffee shop, but I could tell she sensed something different about me. "What's wrong?" she asked. "I haven't been completely honest with you." Her face fell. "You're married. Separated." "But that's not what I mean." I told her about Sienna's affair, about Joel's plan to have me declared incompetent, about the conspiracy to steal my inheritance. I showed her the emails, the recordings, the documented evidence of their fraud. What I didn't tell her was that Joel was her father. "This is incredible," she said, reading through the printed emails. "You have to go to the police." "It's not enough. They haven't actually done anything illegal yet. The conspiracy to commit fraud, the falsified psychiatric evaluation, it's all circumstantial until they act on it. So what are you going to do?" "I'm going to let them act on it. And then I'm going to destroy them." "Emmett, that sounds dangerous." "Sometimes danger is the only way to justice." She was quiet for a long moment. "What do you need from me?" "I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" She nodded. "I trust you." That night, Lila came to my house for the first time. Sienna was out with Joel, probably planning their next move. We made love in the guest bedroom, and afterward Lila fell asleep in my arms. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, knowing that everything was about to change. The next morning brought the call I'd been expecting. "Mr. Kale, this is Attorney Harrison from Goldberg and Associates. I represent your wife in a matter of urgent concern." "What kind of matter?" "Mrs. Kale is filing a petition for conservatorship based on your recent psychiatric evaluation. We'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss the terms." "What terms?" "Transfer of financial assets to a managed trust, sale of real property, and arrangement of appropriate care facilities." They were making their move. "I'll need to think about it." "Mr. Kale, I should inform you that we have substantial documentation of your mental state deterioration. Dr. Tanning has provided extensive notes about your paranoid ideation and reality distortion. This proceeding will happen with or without your cooperation." I understand. But what they didn't understand was that I'd been recording every conversation, documenting every lie, building a case that would destroy them all. The meeting was scheduled for the following Friday at 2 p.m. I spent the week making final preparations. First, I created a comprehensive dossier of evidence: photographs, audio recordings, emails, financial records, and witness statements. Everything was organized, indexed, and copies were stored in multiple locations. Second, I arranged for the house to be deep cleaned and prepared for guests. If this was going to be the final confrontation, it needed to happen on my terms, in my space. Third, I called Lila. "I want you to meet me Friday night, at my house." "Is that safe? What if your wife comes home?" "She won't be coming home." "Not ever." "Emmett, you're scaring me." "Don't be scared, just trust me." Friday arrived gray and cold, with the kind of November rain that chills you to the bone. I dressed carefully: dark suit, conservative tie, the appearance of a man in control of his faculties. The meeting was held at Harrison's law office, a glass tower downtown that reeked of money and corruption. Sienna was there with Joel, both of them trying to look concerned rather than greedy. "Emmett," Sienna said, reaching for my hand. I'm so sorry it's come to this. I pulled away. Come to what? Harrison spread papers across the conference table. Mr. Kale, based on Dr. Tanning's professional assessment, we're recommending immediate conservatorship with your wife as guardian. What does that mean? It means Sienna will make financial and medical decisions on your behalf. The house will be sold to fund your care, and you'll be placed in a facility that can properly address your needs. I looked at Joel. You think I'm crazy? Emmett, you're suffering from a grief-induced psychotic break. It's not your fault, but you need help. What kind of help? Medication, therapy, structured environment, somewhere you can heal. Like a mental hospital? More like a residential treatment center. I nodded slowly. And my assets? Will be managed responsibly, Harrison said. Your wife will ensure you receive the best possible care. How much will that cost? The initial placement fee is $200,000. Monthly care runs about $15,000. Quick math. They'd burn through my inheritance in less than 3 years, leaving me institutionalized and penniless. I need time to think about this. Mr. Kale, Harrison said, this isn't really optional. We're filing the petition Monday morning whether you agree or not. Then, I guess I don't have a choice. I signed the preliminary paperwork, making sure to hold the pen with slightly shaking hands. They all looked pleased, like they'd successfully manipulated a child. If only they knew what was waiting for them. I went home and prepared for the evening. Lila arrived at 7, carrying a bottle of wine and wearing a simple black dress that made her look older than her years. How did the meeting go? She asked. Exactly as planned. I told her about the conservatorship petition, the plans to sell the house, the residential treatment center. They can't do that, she said. It's theft. Actually, they can. The legal system assumes that doctors are honest and wives are loyal. But you have evidence. Evidence that won't matter unless I can prove they acted on their conspiracy. So what now? Now we wait for the other players to arrive. At 8:30, Sienna's car pulled into the driveway. She was with Joel, just as I'd expected. I'd sent her a text earlier asking her to come home, claiming I wanted to discuss something important about our future. Stay upstairs, I told Lila. No matter what you hear, don't come down until I call for you. Emmett, I'm scared. Don't be. Everything's going to be fine. I kissed her forehead and went downstairs to greet my wife and her lover. They were standing in the foyer, shaking rain from their coats. Sienna looked nervous, but Joel seemed confident. He probably thought this was just another opportunity to study his subject. Thank you for coming, I said. Please sit down. I'll get us some drinks. I'd prepared a bottle of my father's best whiskey, along with 3 glasses and a small digital recorder. Everything was positioned perfectly. Emmett, Sienna began. About this afternoon, let's not talk about business just yet. Let's drink to old times. I poured 3 generous glasses and raised mine in a toast. To marriage, to loyalty, to getting what you deserve. We drank, and I watched them relax slightly. The whiskey was good enough to make them forget their caution. I've been thinking about what you said, Joel. About my mental state. What about it? I think you might be right. I have been seeing things that aren't there. Sienna leaned forward. What kind of things? Like my wife loving me. Like my therapist wanting to help me. Like people telling the truth. Joel set down his glass. Emmett, paranoid thoughts are common in your condition. My condition. Grief-induced psychosis with elements of persecution complex. That's a fancy way of saying crazy. It's a medical diagnosis, based on falsified notes and a bribed psychiatric evaluation. The room went silent. I don't know what you're talking about, Sienna said. I pressed play on the recorder. Their own voices filled the room, discussing plans to have me committed, to steal my assets, to warehouse me in a nursing home. Joel's face went white. Where did you get that? I told you I'm an investigator. I investigate fraud. You recorded us illegally. In my own home? With my own wife? Nothing illegal about it. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a thick folder. Photos of you two together, hotel receipts, credit card statements, phone records, email correspondence planning my mental health evaluation, bank records showing the money you paid Dr. Martinez. I spread the evidence across the coffee table like a poker hand. Oh, and my personal favorite, the real estate contract you signed to sell my house. Before you even filed the conservatorship petition. Sienna was crying now. Emmy, please. Let me explain. Explain what? How you've been planning this since my father's funeral? How you seduced a grief counselor into helping you steal my inheritance? It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? You'd have me committed, take my money, and live happily ever after. Joel stood up. This conversation is over. You're clearly having a psychotic episode. Sit down, doctor. Something in my voice made him freeze. We're not finished. See, I have one more piece of evidence to share, I called upstairs. Lila, could you come down here, please? Footsteps on the stairs. Joel turned toward the sound, and I watched his face change as Lila appeared in the doorway. Hello, Daddy? Joel's mouth fell open. Lila, what are you doing here? Getting to know your business partner. Emmett, Joel said slowly. What have you done? I've been dating your daughter for 6 weeks. She's a remarkable woman. Smart, honest, passionate, everything her father isn't. You sick son of a... Joel lunged at me, but I was ready. I sidestepped and let him crash into the coffee table, scattering evidence across the floor. Careful, doctor. Attack is a felony. He picked himself up, breathing hard. Lila, this man is dangerous. He's been manipulating you. Have I asked her. Did you know he was my father when you approached me? I looked at her steadily. Yes. Did you start dating me to get revenge on him? Yes. Are you using me? I was, at first. And now? Now I'm in love with you. The truth of it surprised me. Somewhere in the middle of my elaborate revenge scheme, I'd fallen for Joel's daughter. The irony was perfect. Lila looked at her father, then at Sienna, then back at me. What do you want from them? Justice. What does justice look like? I walked to the mantelpiece and retrieved a final envelope. Full confession of the conspiracy, signed and notarized. Immediate withdrawal of the conservatorship petition. Sienna files for divorce and walks away with nothing. Joel loses his license and faces criminal charges for fraudulent psychiatric evaluation. And if we refuse? Sienna asked. Then I release everything to the police, the medical board, and the press. Your reputations are destroyed. You both face criminal charges, and you still get nothing. Joel was shaking with rage. You can't do this. That recording was obtained illegally. Actually, it wasn't, but even if it was, I have plenty of evidence that was obtained legally. Credit card records, hotel receipts, witness statements. I'm an insurance investigator, doctor. I know how to build a case. You're insane. Maybe, but I'm not stupid. I handed Sienna a pen. Sign the confession. I won't sign anything. Then you'll go to prison. For what? Having an affair? For conspiracy to commit fraud. For filing false documents. For elder misuse. I paused. For attempted homicide. What are you talking about? I reached into my jacket and pulled out a small bottle of pills. Recognize these? They're the antidepressants you've been slipping into my coffee for the past month. Trying to make me actually depressed to support Joel's diagnosis. Sienna's face went pale. I don't know what those are. Sertraline. 50 milligram tablets. Prescribed to Sarah Mitchell, your event planning client who died last month. You kept her leftover medication and have been crushing it into my morning coffee. I held up a small plastic bag containing white powder residue. I had this tested. Your fingerprints are on the bottle. The coffee maker tested positive for sertraline residue. Sedating someone without their knowledge is attempted poisoning. Joel stepped forward. That's impossible. Sienna would never... Wouldn't she? You told her I needed to display symptoms of depression to support your diagnosis. She was just being helpful. Emmy, please, Sienna whispered. I was trying to help you. You were so sad after your father died. Help me or help yourself. I walked to the window and looked out at the rain. You know what the funny thing is? I really was depressed after Dad died. I really did need help. If you'd just been honest, if you just loved me, I would have gotten better. I do love you. No, you love what I represent. Security, money, status. You never loved me. I turned back to face them. But that's okay. Because I found someone who does. Lila had been silent through the entire confrontation, but now she spoke. Emmett, what happens to us? That depends on you. What do you mean? I'm about to destroy your father's life. I'm going to make sure he loses everything. Can you live with that? She looked at Joel, who was staring at her with desperate eyes. Daddy always said he wanted to protect me from bad men, she said quietly. Turns out he was the bad man I needed protection from. Joel's face crumpled. Lila, please, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You tried to steal from a grieving man. You manipulated his wife into betraying him. You falsified medical records. She paused. You made me ashamed to be your daughter. I did it for us, for our future. No, you did it for yourself. I handed Sienna the confession again. Last chance. She looked at Joel, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. If I sign this, what happens to me? You walk away, tonight, forever. You don't contest the divorce. You don't claim any assets, and you never contact me again. And Joel faces the consequences of his choices. She took the pen with a shaking hand and signed the document. There's one more thing, I said. What? I need you to call Detective Morrison at the police department. Tell her you want to report an attempted fraud conspiracy. I won't incriminate myself. You already did when you signed the confession. But if you cooperate with the investigation, the prosecutor might be willing to make a deal. Sienna looked defeated. She pulled out her phone and made the call. While she was talking to the police, Joel tried one last desperate play. Emmett, we can work this out. I'll withdraw from the case, recommend another therapist. We'll pretend none of this happened. Too late for that. I have connections. People who can make your life very difficult. Threaten me again, and I'll add obstruction of justice to your charges. You're destroying innocent people. Innocent? I laughed. You tried to have me committed to steal my money. Sienna poisoned me with antidepressants. Where exactly is the innocence? What about Lila? She's innocent. Don't you care about her future? I looked at Lila, who was sitting quietly on the stairs, watching her world collapse. Lila's future is her choice, but she'll make it free from your manipulation. Detective Morrison arrived 20 minutes later with 2 uniformed officers. She was a tall woman with gray hair and tired eyes who'd seen every kind of human betrayal imaginable. Mr. Kale, I understand you want to report a conspiracy. That's correct. I handed her the evidence folder. Everything's documented. The affair, the plan to have me declared incompetent, the falsified psychiatric evaluation, the attempted poisoning. She flipped through the materials with professional efficiency. This is quite extensive. How long have you been gathering this evidence? 3 months. Why didn't you report it sooner? I needed them to act on the conspiracy. Without documented action, it's just talk. She nodded. Doctor. Tanning, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and falsifying medical records. As they read Joel his rights, he looked at me with pure hatred. This isn't over. Yes, it is. They led him away in handcuffs. Sienna followed in a separate car, already calling her lawyer. When the house was quiet again, Lila and I sat in the living room among the scattered evidence of my destroyed marriage. What happens now? She asked. Now we start over, together. If you want to, even though I'm his daughter, you're not responsible for your father's crimes. She was quiet for a long moment. I need you to know something. What? I'm pregnant? The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at her, trying to process what she'd said. How long have you known? 2 weeks. I was going to tell you tonight before all this happened. Are you sure? I took 3 tests. I felt something shift inside me, not the calculation that had driven me for months, but something warmer and more frightening. What do you want to do? I want to keep it. If you'll help me. Of course I'll help you. She started crying then, and I held her while she sobbed out months of stress and fear and confusion. I'm scared, Emmett. Of what? Of you. Of this. Of what kind of person I'm becoming. What do you mean? I should be horrified by what you did. I should hate you for destroying my father. But I don't. I'm proud of you. Why? Because you fought back. Because you didn't just take it. Because you showed them that actions have consequences. I kissed the top of her head, breathing in the scent of her hair. Your father was right about one thing, I said. What? I am dangerous. I'm capable of things that would shock you. I know. And you're okay with that? I'm okay with you. The trial took 8 months. Joel was convicted of conspiracy to commit fraud, falsifying medical records, and bribery. He got 3 years in prison and lost his psychology license permanently. Sienna pled guilty to conspiracy and attempted poisoning. She got 18 months probation and community service. Dr. Martinez, the psychiatrist who took Joel's bribe, lost his license and paid a substantial fine. Hugh, my brother, was convicted of pill possession and served 6 months in county jail. When he got out, he tried to contact me once. I never responded. Lila and I were married in a small ceremony 3 months after the trial ended. She was 6 months pregnant by then, glowing with health and happiness despite everything we'd been through. We kept the house on Elm Street. I couldn't bring myself to sell the place my father had built with his own hands, especially now that it would be home to his grandchild. I left insurance investigation and started my own security consulting firm. Apparently, being the subject of an elaborate fraud conspiracy made me highly qualified to help others protect themselves from similar schemes. Lila finished art school and opened a small gallery downtown. Her work, sculptures exploring themes of betrayal and redemption, became surprisingly popular. We never talked about her father. She visited him once in prison, but came home crying and never went back. Our daughter was born on a cold February morning, exactly 9 months after that confrontational night in the living room. We named her Grace, after my mother, who had died when I was 12. Looking at Grace's tiny face, I understood something I'd never understood before. Some things are worth protecting at any cost. The first time I held her, I made a silent promise. No one would ever hurt her the way Joel and Sienna had tried to hurt me. No one would ever take advantage of her trust or exploit her vulnerabilities. I would teach her to be strong, to be smart, to be careful about who she trusted. But I would also teach her to be better than me. Because revenge, I learned, is a poison that spreads. It felt good to destroy Joel and Sienna, to watch them pay for their betrayal. But it changed me in ways I'm still discovering. Sometimes Lila catches me staring out the window with that calculating look I used to reserve for insurance cases. "What are you thinking about?" she'll ask. "Nothing important." But that's not true. I'm thinking about all the ways people might try to hurt my family. I'm thinking about contingencies and backup plans and evidence collection. I'm thinking like a man who's learned that the people you trust most are the ones most capable of destroying you. Detective Morrison stopped by the house last week. She's retired now, but we've stayed in touch. "How are you doing, Emmett?" she asked over coffee. "Good. Really good." "No regrets?" "About what?" "About how far you went. Some people might say you crossed a line." I thought about it for a moment, watching Lila play with Grace in the backyard. They crossed the line first. I just made sure they couldn't cross back. That's not how justice is supposed to work. Justice is supposed to be blind, Detective. But sometimes it needs help seeing. She nodded, understanding more than she probably wanted to. "Just be careful, Emmett. Men like you, men who've learned to fight back, sometimes have trouble knowing when to stop fighting." "I'll keep that in mind." After she left, I sat in my father's old chair and thought about her warning. Was she right? Had I become someone dangerous? The answer, I realized, was yes. But I was dangerous to the right people for the right reasons. Joel and Sienna had counted on my decency, my trust, my willingness to believe the best about people I loved. They'd use those qualities as weapons against me. I'd never make that mistake again. 6 months ago, I got a letter from Joel in prison. He was up for parole and wanted to meet with me. "I know you hate me," the letter said, "but I need you to understand something. I really did think I was helping you. Your grief was so profound, your depression so obvious. I thought hospitalization might give you the structure you needed to heal." I read the letter twice, then burned it in the fireplace. Some lies are so complete, so perfectly crafted, that the liar eventually believes them himself. Joel had convinced himself that his theft was actually compassion, that his betrayal was actually love. He would die believing that lie, and I was fine with that. Last month, Lila asked me something that kept me awake for weeks. "Do you think we would have met if none of this had happened? If you hadn't been looking for revenge against my father?" "I don't know." "Do you think you would have loved me if I hadn't been useful to your plan?" It was a fair question. A brutal question. "I don't know," I said again, "but I know I love you now. Even though our entire relationship started as a lie?" "It didn't start as a lie. It started as a strategy. It became love. What's the difference?" "Strategy serves a purpose. Love doesn't need one." She seemed satisfied with that answer, but I wasn't. The truth is, I've never been able to separate my love for Lila from my need for revenge against her father. They're tangled together in ways that probably aren't healthy, but we're happy. Grace is healthy and beautiful and completely unaware that her grandfather is a convicted felon. Lila's art is thriving, my business is successful, and we've built something real together. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder what would have happened if I'd handled things differently. If I'd confronted Sienna directly instead of gathering evidence. If I'd reported Joel to the medical board instead of destroying him systematically. Would justice have been served? Would I have gotten my life back? I'll never know. What I do know is that some betrayals are so deep, so calculated, that they require equally calculated responses. Sienna and Joel didn't just want to hurt me. They wanted to erase me, to declare me incompetent, steal my inheritance, and warehouse me somewhere I'd never be heard from again. They wanted to eliminate me without actually eliminating me. I simply returned the favor. Today is Grace's first birthday. We're having a party in the backyard, just the three of us and a few close friends. Lila made a cake shaped like a rainbow, and I've been setting up a small playground my father would have loved to build himself. Watching Grace take her first steps across the grass, I feel something I haven't felt in years. Peace. Not the peace of forgiveness. I'll never forgive Joel and Sienna for what they tried to do, but the peace of completion. They set out to destroy me and failed. I set out to destroy them and succeeded. The scales are balanced. As the sun sets behind the trees my father planted 40 years ago, I hold my daughter close and whisper the promise I made the day she was born. No one will ever hurt you the way they hurt me. It's a promise I intend to keep, whatever it takes. Lila finds me an hour later, standing in the kitchen with Grace asleep in my arms. "What are you thinking about?" she asks. "The future." "What about it?" "How to protect it." She kisses my cheek and takes Grace from my arms. "Some things protect themselves, Emmett. Some things just need love." Maybe she's right, but I've learned that love without vigilance is just another word for vulnerability, and I'll never be vulnerable again. That night, after Lila and Grace are asleep, I sit in my father's chair and open the notebook I've been keeping for the past year. It's not about insurance cases or fraud investigations. It's about people who might pose threats to my family. Sienna's new boyfriend, who's been asking questions about me around town. Joel's brother, who sent me a threatening email last month. Lila's art dealer, who's been taking too large a commission and might be cooking the books. Small threats, mostly. Nothing like the systematic betrayal Joel and Sienna orchestrated, but threats nonetheless. I've learned to document everything, to prepare for every possibility, to always be 3 moves ahead, because the wolves are always watching. And I'll be watching them back. The end.